guys.
This is Mark.
This is Michelle.
And we are back with an episode of This is Mark and Michelle.
So today we're still talking about why we can heal autism. And we are on the gastrointestinal damage.
Yes. And now, I can tell you from my own experience, let's start with the story, why not? That long before I even knew there was such a thing as autism, long before I knew Michelle, long before I realized that gut issues caused brain problems and everything else. Hey, Taj, I knew I had gut trouble. And I'd have lots of gas, lots of pain, and I just thought, oh, well, that's just normal. That's just what people have.
I remember the time you passed out.
Oh, yeah, that was in Denver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were newly married.
Mm-hmm. And I was having gut trouble, gut pain, I'm guessing. And it affected my vagus nerve so bad that I actually passed out and fell on the floor in the bathroom.
Yes.
And
it was
so
interesting.
It was. And, of course, that was 1995, so I never thought of, I just didn't think about, oh, well, maybe that's a problem for my life. You know, I just figured, oh, well, people just kind of have gut trouble.
Right.
And
I think lots of people think that's normal.
Yeah.
I know that I was diagnosed with IBS.
Yep. Who did that?
Scarlet.
Okay. And so, you know, it's funny how we never put together things like that.
Except I did. When we started going to the neurologist,
is
that right?
Dr. Klaus?
Yeah.
Kelly Klaus? Uh-huh.
I said, "How are these migraines? Do you think these migraines could be connected to my gut dysfunction?" And she thought that was very interesting and started researching it.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, we ought to get back in touch with her and tell her what she'd find that interesting. So, but anyway, so we didn't connect, she did, but I didn't connect my gut issues with my brain problems, right? And so I would just eat whatever I wanted, and I'd be sick, and I was just like, oh, okay, whatever, you know. And I figured, well, it must be have to do with what I ate, but did I change what I ate? No.
Well, except in our middle 20s, we did. We went low carb.
Did we get Atkins diet?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I was already really sick.
Yeah, you were. And with Lyme disease, in parenthesis, EBV. And
I can't go the right way.
Right. I know, it's backwards. So it's like organic chemistry. But anyway, so I didn't make the connection, and she finally made the connection, but it was still a few years into our marriage, I think, before you made the connection about the gut and the migraines.
That was in my 30s.
Right. But so I had gut trouble, and she did too. And I remember when, since I am such a good cook and I've done cooking for so long, I couldn't cook anything with onions in it.
Yeah.
Cooked, not even cooked, because they'd make her sick. And she used to be gut sick quite a bit.
Well, they would be a migraine trigger, which
Yeah.
means it was trying to detox me. I know this now.
Okay. And so, but now she was eating raw onions earlier today before I went to work. They were in the vegan potato salad that we filmed.
I couldn't do that even a year and a half ago. I couldn't do that. So that's really exciting.
At times, she's even eaten hot sauce.
Have I?
Once or twice.
Well,
if it was mild hot sauce, yeah. Which you've never done that before.
No.
But it's funny, we don't link, I think most people don't link gut trouble to other health issues.
Brain health.
Yeah, brain health or any other kind of health for that matter.
Well, and I was even reading, medical medium says that if you have poor gut health, you have poor intuition.
Well, makes sense considering they're finding out that there's such large neural networks in your gut and around your heart. So what we'll do is we'll relate this all to autism.
Yes.
Now, gastrointestinal damage. I've seen numerous papers, and while I'll post a paper that I found that relates gastrointestinal disorders to autism. But anyway, we'll start with this. GI disorders are common with autism. Now, GI disorders, bloating,
Constipation.
Gas, excessive gas, some gas, okay, but excessive gas, constipation, diarrhea. Man, I wouldn't know what all else. Anything gut related, to be honest. You know, if your gut isn't, in other words, if you're not pooping out smooth poop quite a few times a day, you got GI issues. Yeah. Seriously. And so, in fact, I haven't come across any autistic adults who were free of gastrointestinal issues, who had autism. I just haven't. Now, there may be kids who are living without GI issues who have autism, but they won't for the rest of their lives. Yeah. That I promise. They'll have GI issues later on. So, damage to the GI tract is linked with many health issues. Well, here's a couple of other things from that paper. Inflammation. That's a big one. Microbial infection. Well, we'll say microbial. Well, microbes to me include viruses as well as bacteria. So microbial infections. Broken protein digestion. You know what? Broken digestion, period. Not just proteins. I imagine broken. Hey, Krista. I imagine broken carbohydrate digestion, broken fat digestion, all kinds of stuff. Now, proper diet can heal GI damage. Now, the GAPS diet did it for me, and I know GAPS diet has done it for quite a few folks. But that seems to be an extreme way to me now. After doing the medical medium for so long, the medical medium way seems to be very gentle for gut, especially for kids. Not to start out with, because it's detoxing you and it's clearing out bad stuff and this kind of thing. But once you get over the detox and the initial, think about this. You can't automatically change your kitty's or your dog's foods, right, without them getting sick. Truthfully, it's the same way with humans. I know that sounds far-fetched, but it's not. When you up and change a diet, you go through gastrointestinal distress until your gut gets used to it. Then your gut will get used to it. It's really the same thing. You just can't do a 180 in your diet and expect to just smoothly transition into it. It's just not going to happen. It didn't for us on the GAPS. When we started the GAPS from the Great American Diet.
Well, I was never on the Great American Diet.
Well, that's true. You weren't.
Not since my 20s, early 20s.
Yeah, exactly. And so on the Great American Diet, when we transitioned from that to GAPS, we were sick for a few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. You know?
I don't remember that far away.
Yeah, well, I do. But then when we started on medical medium.
Yes. I felt like I was out of my body for a month.
Yeah, exactly.
It was really wild.
And while I don't think we were gut sick.
Well, yeah, we were.
Were we? Okay.
Yeah.
She can remember that far back.
Yeah, because it was pretty uncomfortable. There was a lot of gas and a lot of.
So, well,
sometimes diarrhea.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
I remember that.
It was like you had the flu.
Yeah.
That's why we encourage you to go very slowly with your detox. We just jumped right in and did 16 ounces of celery juice, and then the whole big old
HMDS smoothie. I did HMDS smoothies twice a day sometimes.
Yeah, and
with lots of cilantro. And so
yeah, that created a lot of distress because we were detoxing intensely.
Yeah.
And when we did the 28-day cleanse, we didn't have any cooked food and hardly any fat. It was mostly raw.
Yeah. And we ate lots of salads, lots of dates, lots of date pastes. I don't even think
we did have some potatoes. Nuts.
Yeah, we did.
Which was not part of the cleanse.
Which we didn't realize that at that point.
We cleansed anyway.
We did, and you would too. But you want to avoid that kind of stuff if you can. But the medical medium is going to clear out the liver. Clearing out the liver will keep all the rest of the organs working correctly. And because the toxins that the liver can't hold won't get put into those organs. You see what I mean? You'll clean yourself out slowly but surely. And
so I wanted to go into what medical medium actually says, what is happening in the guts of people who don't work correctly.
Right.
And this is not something that science would talk about. This is completely new information to me. And it's called ammonia permeability. It is when the food lies in the gut and rots, and it creates an ammonia. Well, it creates ammonia. Mm-hmm. And this gas can get into the bloodstream. So it is not actually yeast causing your issues. It is this ammonia gas coming from the stuff that's rotting in your gut. There aren't holes. If there were holes in your gut, if you had leaky gut, you would have a really high fever and you would be bleeding. This is what he's talking about.
Uh-huh.
He said, so what you're actually dealing with is ammonia permeability. This happens if your hydrochloric acid is too low and bad acids take over.
Mm-hmm.
And what he said is if you eat a high protein diet, that is way too much for the hydrochloric acid, and that's why you lose your hydrochloric acid.
Well, let me tell you something, just a tiny tidbit of science here. She's talking about ammonia permeability. Do you know what makes up proteins? Amino acids. You know what amino acids are made from? Ammonia.
Oh my goodness.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's pretty brilliant.
They all have a side chain of ammonia.
You need to post that.
Okay.
Okay. So these bad acids take over, and that's when you start having reflux
Mm-hmm.
and everything else that comes. The gut has to create mucus to protect itself from these bad acids, and the mucus stops absorption of nutrients. Does that make sense to you?
Well, the mucus basically is formed because of inflammation, and the gut secretes the mucus to keep it from continually being inflamed or damaged or anything else.
And this ammonia can cause fatigue, skin problems, restless sleep, anxiety, malaise, and he said, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the new information. And how do you fix this?
Da, da, da.
You drink celery juice first thing in the morning. He wants 16 ounces, but if you are really sick, start with a quarter of a stalk.
Yeah, because I've heard a friend of mine at work, she had such bad psoriasis or eczema that it had covered her face and her hands, and they looked like open sores. And she spent 2 months. I told her about the celery juice. She spent 2 months every day drinking celery juice. 2 months later, her brain was working better. All that eczema was gone. And Michelle saw it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
She cured herself. Her brain's even working better now.
That's
celery juice. 2 months.
It's amazing. If you want a magic pill, drink that.
Yeah.
But you also you have to be real careful about the amount of detox you're doing.
Yeah, you got to manage that by slowing down. We've said that before.
Yes.
But for you folks, for instance, cilantro, I've overdosed on cilantro a couple of times by accident. So cilantro or celery juice, any of these things that really detox, if you feel like you're going crazy or if you're having a panic attack or
out of the ordinary.
Yeah, out of the ordinary, you're probably detoxing way too much.
Yeah, it's pulling metals out of places and killing too many viruses.
With their neurotoxins.
But yeah, so go slow.
Mm-hmm.
You got me? Go slow.
Right. So slow it down. Yeah. But
do it.
Definitely do the celery juice. And if the celery juice is too much, you can do cucumber juice. He recommends that.
That's right. And if cilantro is too much, you can do parsley.
That's right. And parsley is not as potent as cilantro.
But it does get metals out as well.
Not the curly parsley, not the cute little curled up stuff, but the Italian parsley, the big flat leaf stuff. It's strong like cilantro, but it'll do the job. So as far as gastrointestinal damage, I've seen colonoscopies in scientific journals of pictures of autistic guts, and they do have lesions on them or holes in them.
He said that if like a strep got in there in a pocket, it could cause something like that, an ulcer kind of a thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so, because it's an infection.
Yes.
And after the infection gets so bad, basically the streptococcus bacteria, in this just as an example, would eat away the lining of the gut. And so you would bleed internally,
right? Not
external.
Right.
So,
and you would have a fever, likely.
You would. Well, that's inflammation.
Right.
So you'd have the inflammation. So if you think about that, any of your kids or loved ones who are autistic who have splotchy red faces, and I see lots of customers at the store like this who aren't necessarily autistic, but splotchy red faces, and they seem unmotivated, because remember we talked about motivation and inflammation from that scientific paper I found. And so motivation goes away when you have chronic inflammation. And with gut damage, you can have chronic inflammation. And so, so pay attention to your kids and loved ones with autism. If you see that they're splotchy red faces, they always tend to run a slightly high fever, like 99 or 99.5, that's inflammation. And so you can control the inflammation by fruit, because I have. Now, something that chronic is going to take a long time before you can start to control it. But if it's just mild inflammation, I've easily controlled mine just by eating lots and lots of fruit. So let's see. Anything else we want to talk about on here?
I don't think there's anything there, but we could talk about what happened today to you.
Well, you know, interestingly enough, I talked about broken protein digestion.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, I said a minute ago that proteins have amino acids on them, and amino acids are made up of ammonia, right? If your gut doesn't process proteins properly, that's probably why you have ammonia permeability.
It's floating around.
And so I don't know this to be for sure, but I'm
look
sure.
It up, though.
But I'm definitely going to look that up, because think about that. You have all this free-floating amino acids, and it can easily be turned into strip off that ammonia, and we may have free-floating ammonia molecules creating ammonia problems, all that gas.
And that's if I remember correctly, he said that's why teeth go bad.
Oh, yeah, I think I remember that. So, but speaking of going bad, so for those of you who had paid attention to a post I did earlier this afternoon, I had eaten a couple of squares of pizza, you know, like ink.
Say it, because we have podcast people.
And squares of pizza about 2 inches wide, 2 inches long, you know, maybe 4 inches square. And
what was on the pizza?
Just cheese and pepperoni.
Oh, wow, all the things not to eat.
Pretty much.
So
and,
it had wheat crust.
So it had viruses and bacteria.
Yeah, you were eating everything.
Yep. And so Michelle noticed I was a little off last night, and I was a tiny bit grumpy. And because I had a run-in with a team member, I mild run-in with a team member at work who mildly annoyed me. And so, but that kind of blossomed into something stronger and more irritable this morning. And I realized that strep / viruses.
Michelle realized.
Okay, fine. Michelle realized.
Michelle said, "Did you eat something yesterday?"
No, she said, "You're kind of edgy."
You're a little edgy.
Yeah.
Because that edginess is actually an entity. It's like not Mark. It's something that comes before him, and it.
Well, I'll explain that entity in detail here in a minute, because I took notes on living through it today.
All right.
So anyway, so entity, okay, and but she pointed that out, and I told her, well, I had a couple squares of pizza, and it seems to have reared its tiny, ugly head again. And what's interesting is, in the past, if I had strayed off and had strep virus feeding foods, you know, and I really think they work together.
They do.
In the sense that if you eat something made out of a grain with something that's fat.
He said if you have sugar with fat, it encases the sugar, so the sugar can't plug in to be glucose, and it just settles into your liver.
Well, that's glucagon. I think that's what that is. I have to look it up again. But anyway, the whole point is, my brain changed to well, not super negative. This is the mildest set of the PANDAS symptoms that I've ever had. And they used to make me irrational, angry, difficult to deal with. And since I've recovered, having the PANDAS symptoms, especially in the past year and a half, if I've had them, I could be very smart-mouthed to people. And being in a retail setting, that's not the best thing to do. So, but today I was able to regulate that very well. In fact, you know, a couple of customers were real jerks, and I didn't say anything to them, which is cool because I made a promise to myself that, see, I kept quiet as an Aspie. I never stuck up for myself when I was autistic. Now I do. And I made a promise to myself that I would open my mouth when I needed to, and I've done that. Sometimes making up for lost time. But
it helped that we figured it out before you left so that you could take cat's claw. And what else did you take?
I took cat's claw, VSC, lysine, zinc, and colloidal silver. And I think it helped it. But getting around the customers at work made me edgier, although I still was able to regulate it. But the anger, the irritability, the annoyance, the not wanting to be in contact with people, the negativity, when your kids are like that, or your loved ones are like that, when they have the anger, the irritability, the annoyance, the not wanting to be around people,
not wanting to be touched,
that is the strep virus combination at work, or incredibly low blood sugar. Yes. But then that's what autism is anyway.
Right.
Because even Medical Medium in his book says you got to give a lot more fruit to kids with autism and ADHD than you do normal kids, because their brains are just absolutely starved for it. And he's right on that, because that was exactly my experience these past 5 decades living with it. So anyway, we're a little bit over time.
But I wanted you to tackle the entity. You said did you?
Well, I took notes on that. And what it is apparently people, that was almost like what the meaning of is. Anyway, but it seems very apparent to people when I'm in that state, other people see it better than I see it. And so it apparently precedes you, because other people immediately get uncomfortable around me when I'm in that state, and I don't know it until I've approached them. Now, not my fault. That's just what it is. You could say it's my fault because I ate the stuff, but at the same time, something that you'll learn from us is you have to stray from the diet to know how far you've come on the diet. Now, you don't want to do it huge, sit down and have 9 pizzas, but that
would kill you.
That would kill anybody, even if they were healthy. But yeah, you straying from the diet a little bit shows you how far along you are, and we've always done that. And
him more than me.
That's true. She is incredibly disciplined, so she doesn't have to do that. She just keeps barreling on through. And she heals.
I felt sick my whole life, and I feel good, and I'm excited, and I don't want to mess it up.
Well, exactly. And I don't permanently mess it up, mind you. But,
I know that.
Yeah, well, and so I don't permanently mess it up, even though, oddly enough, at the very beginning of recovery, we were worried that I would stray down a regression and not come back.
Right.
But that didn't happen.
But that's just because we didn't know.
Exactly. So anyway, if you see those behaviors in your kids, just know their brain is very negative. That entity of the strep virus combination has taken over, and so treat it. VSC, which I'm not sure what the maker is of that, but VSC.
Nature's Sunshine.
Nature's Sunshine. VSC, it's a Chinese herbal combination made for viruses. So anyway, but you'll want to use VSC, lysine, liquid zinc, colloidal silver, and cat's claw. Those things work for all of that. And raw garlic if you can get it in your kids.
Yes, and he forgot to take that before work.
Yes.
And that was part of that.
And that might have helped more.
It would have helped him a lot if he had remembered.
But anyway, so anything else?
That's it for tonight.
Except for heavy metal detox smoothie. Do it. Celery juice. Do it. And we will see you here tomorrow night, because we'll be talking about what?
Oh, I forgot to look.
No. Stagnant liver. So see you tomorrow night for the stagnant liver.
Thanks for being here.
Bye.